I'm asked by a lot of clients, do I need a premarital agreement? And one of the things that I tell them is that, well, if you get married, you do have a premarital agreement. You may not know it, but it's called the California Family Code. All thousands and thousands of code sections and hundreds of significant cases that have interpreted the family code is your prenup. That's what is going to govern your marriage, and if you separate, your divorce. Those are the default rules that apply. And if you don't like those rules, you need a prenup.
Doesn't a prenup include both death and divorce? So the premarital agreement is, or the default premarital agreement is the probate code too. So it encompasses not only the family code, but the probate code, because a premarital agreement is not only what happens at divorce, but what happens at death. A lot of lawyers don't understand that aspect of a premarital agreement, because if you have a premarital agreement and it covers what happens at death, no matter what changes a spouse makes to your will or estate plan, you're always protected. So premarital agreements are critical to protect you in both instances. Then why do we need a prenup, Chris, if there's already a prenup in the family code, in the probate code, in the laws of the state of California?
Well, California law is set up to really protect community property, and for the creation of community property. Anything that's done during marriage, efforts of a spouse on a business, is community property and will give some rights to the other spouse to compensation, even if that business is separate property. There's a lot of protections for spouses in order to get spousal support or alimony at the end of a marriage. So these are all the default rules that are set up and work in most cases, but if you don't want that to happen to you in your divorce, you need to have a premarital agreement at the beginning, so you're not going to be subject to those kind of rules.
Aren't there a lot of gray areas in the California family laws? Not only do we have statutes, but we have many cases. Often the cases are conflicting, dealing with separate and community property. To really know what you're going to get if you get divorced or when you die, you need an enforceable premarital agreement.
That's extremely important because there are gray areas in the law. If money's borrowed during marriage for a business that existed before marriage, well, that's a separate business, but now you're borrowing money during marriage. You're using your joint credit to help that business succeed. Did you just give an interest in that business as a result of that loan? These are difficult questions to answer, and a premarital agreement can provide certainty by saying, no, any joint loan that's used for a business is not going to give an interest in that business. And we can make a payment to the other side to waive all those rights to the business, but so it's not unfair to the other spouse. It's really creating certainty as to what's going to happen if they ever separate.
A lot of people ask us, who needs a premarital agreement? And what we say is people that own a business before marriage, people that have exposure to spousal support or alimony, people that have large debts before marriage. What are some of the other reasons people may want a premarital agreement?
A lot of times is when you have a family business. This is so important. Where we've seen businesses that have been created over generations, passed down from one generation to the other. And it's important to keep that business in the family. And if there's not a premarital agreement, what could happen in a divorce is that the other spouse gets part of that business. Now, they need to be compensated somehow for any work that was done to improve the value of the business, but giving them an actual interest in the business, making them a shareholder, is something that a lot of families just don't want to see happen.
Also, I find that people are unable to keep their separate property separate. They commingle it or mix it with their earnings, their marital assets, and it is really difficult to unwind that in a divorce unless you have an enforceable prenup and you actually follow the premarital agreement.